What's the first question you ask to every client that you come across and it really catches them off?
Depends on the business a bit, but I usually just ask them, like, what's your number one issue? It's extremely important. Like, every business really always has like one of three issues. It's either staffing, like revenue or growth, or cost of goods. Just say, like, what's number one? I want to know the biggest issue.
What has been working for so many years in organic content that people still are not paying attention?
I think the number one is YouTube. I'm surprised, like, YouTube kind of hits everything. You can get the shorts, you can do like super long form, you can put out podcasts like through video or audio. You can make super educational content. You could get super granular on landscaping strategies. You could literally create anything on YouTube and your audience is over 1 billion people. I felt like a client was not looking to spend any money, but I just wanted to say, like, all right, let's just spend 10 minutes a day. I want you to walk me through a landscaper. Like, tell me why you choose this mowing your lawn versus this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a fresh episode of The Underdog Protagonist. I'm Pratyush, and today on the podcast, we are diving deep into the real playbook for growth. No clickbait, no fluff, just hard-earned strategy from someone who's built it from the ground up. Joining us today is Justin Abrams, founder and CEO of Aryo Consulting Group, a firm with over 300 plus companies served. If you're someone who's been burned by an agency, doubting your own growth path, or just trying to scale without selling your soul to ads, this conversation is for you. So without any further ado, let's welcome our guest, Justin Abrams, to the podcast. Hi, Justin. Welcome to the Underdog Protagonist podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Listen, before we begin this podcast, just for our listeners' context, would you briefly say who you are, what you do, and what you're best known for?
Sure. So my name is Justin Abrams. I run a consulting firm in Boston called Aryo Consulting Group. What we typically do is we bring kind of the McKinsey strategy, and really beyond that to the small and medium businesses of the world. I try to think of us as like, a doctor, us kind of solving the issues, both for growth and for operations. And, what we're best known for is really just, again, taking kind of the right strategy and frameworks, like working with the founder, the CEO, the owner, whatever it is, and making sure that they're on the path to actually growing their business. Because the reality is, I speak with many clients who are doing, $5 to $10 million and beyond, but they don't have the systems in place to grow beyond that. They're just barely getting by. So that's a bit about me.
Gotcha. I often say like strategy feels like a therapy now, mostly for business owners. When you have thought about every possible way and you don't have to struggle now, is everything is on point and going according to the process. What do you think business owners feel, or why do you think business owners feel so lost right now?
So I don't know if it's particularly because of COVID and beyond, but I feel like if you look at the past 5 years, you had the pandemic. So that was a massive change to the way that your systems were working. Then you had kind of like an inflationary period, as well as a hiring period. So you have inflation, then you have the hiring issues, and then now what we're seeing is like tariff related and macroeconomic related. You also had the war in Ukraine and in the Middle East. Right now, as of 2 or 3 days ago, the U.S. just bombed Iran. So these are not to say that every business is affected all the time in all of these, but we had for the past 20 years prior had a relatively stable economic situation, right? Inflation in the US was around 2%. Hiring issues were feasible and manageable. People were going into the office. There was never like this work from home going from 0% to 50%, overnight. That wasn't a thing. So I think most business owners, they just feel like things have changed so fast, and we as a society are just now comfortable just like moving on a dime and going from like, doing A, B, and C to now like X, Y, and Z. Totally different way of doing business, but like done within 30 days. And then all of that has come at the time that AI has like drastically changed the game for every business. And so we see like, I have customers who are losing 30 or 40% of their sales in a year. They've never had, a fluctuation of like beyond 5%. So how do they adapt to it? I just feel like we're in a period of like massive swings and changes that no one's really thinking through.
I 100% agree with that. Maybe there's some sort of blockage in their growth. And you being a strategist, you ask a lot of questions to get to the root of the cause, right? And every question always starts with one. So I'm curious about that first question. What's the first question you ask to every client that you come across and it really catches them off?
Yeah, it depends on the business a bit, but I usually just ask them, like, what's your number one issue? It's extremely important. Like, every business really always has like one of three issues. It's either staffing, like revenue or growth, or cost of goods. Like the cost of the product can be quite high. Just say, like, what's number one? I want to know the biggest issue because we can solve a lot of things and I can spend 2, 3, 4 months on like solving an issue or getting you to the next level. That first decision, like what you really think is your biggest issue, it's really important. And even if it isn't your biggest issue from afar, I'd rather just hear it from them and understand like why that's the biggest issue. And then you can go into a lot of questions. But I think asking them like what their number one issue is really important.
It's better to have not have any assumptions and really ask them what they're really feeling and then deciphering that deeply. Yeah. What do you think? Like, if I talk about 2025, a lot of marketing agencies have been nullified, have been, you know, clumped into a single group offering the same thing over and over to every other client. And there's no differentiation, right? That if I go to XYZ, they're nothing different than ABC. So why should I choose you? What do you think is the problem with most of these marketing agencies right now?
Yeah, I don't know why marketing agencies have done a really bad job, but from what I find, they either fall into one of two categories. So they're either basically playing the venture card, which is you get a bunch of clients and you hope that one of them does like a really good job and then grows really fast. And then you charge them a percentage fee on the total spend. So, in theory, if I have 5 clients, 4 of those are not worth it, and I end up like they churn. But one of them becomes like, spending $1 million a month. And so now I can get, $100,000 or 10% of that or 15% of that each month. That in itself like means that they're actually just very selfish, right? They're focused on their revenue. And if you're one of those four, you're screwed. Like you just really gotten a bad rap. So that's one model, right? And that's an effective model from a marketing agency. The second model is they basically do like the maintenance and the bare minimum. So they've created a systematized process. Maybe it's like they're going to add 2 backlinks a month and they're going to create 3 social media posts and they're going to update your plugins on your WordPress site. So that in itself is also a proven model because it's very low cost. But the problem is like that doesn't really drive growth. Like that's a very basic thing. So the problem that I have with the marketing agencies is like they don't work. Their models for growth are never really effective for the underlying client. And so while I don't believe a lot of companies should just hire a marketing, full-time hire, you have to understand the incentives to each of these companies. And, most of them are just their underlying incentive is not right for the clients. So just be super wary of that.
The bullshit. I mean, there's two models of growth. One is organic and inorganic, and most of the spend that is happening from the company is on the inorganic growth, right? Paid media, ads, and everything. And people often don't realize the power organic content holds in itself, right? And that's why I'm coming to this question next: is what has been working for so many years in organic content that people still are not paying attention
Yeah, I think the number one is YouTube. I'm surprised, like YouTube kind of hits everything. You can get the shorts, you can do long, like super, super long form. You can put out podcasts through this, like through video or audio. You can make super educational content, like on, you could get super granular on landscaping strategies, right? You could create you could literally create anything on YouTube and your audience is over 1 billion people. So like if I felt like a client was not looking to spend any money, but I just wanted to say like, all right, let's just spend 10 minutes a day. I want you to walk me through, if you're a landscaper, like tell me why you choose this mowing your lawn versus this. Or how about you do a video that's the top 5 lawnmowers that you recommend. And then you drive traffic to a landing page and you can just pick up free traffic from there. So all of that stuff is like so powerful, but you'd be surprised. Like there might be 500 landscaping channels on YouTube in the whole world, and there's probably 5 million landscapers in the world. Like it's a crazy untapped area, and yet it obviously is very tapped. Like it's very very busy, but like for your niche, it just is usually very very untouched.
Hmm. Gotcha. Um, I have I have listened to a couple of your podcast sessions where you're out there, and you often say in your, I think in your bio as well, that Reddit and FB groups still work, right? And they also drive organic growth for every other brand. This feels like very 2015, but why does it still work?
Yeah. So the thing that those groups have and Reddit has is a community. And for whatever reason, people are comfortable with their community and they don't tend to leave. And they're not looking for new things in their life. Like they go to Reddit because they trust it. If you can create this persona and overall like establish a brand on a hyper targeted community, even if it's of 500 people in that community, you're going to get a much higher percentage of those people that are either your target market, but also like will ultimately convert. So marketing on Meta and on Google is all about like finding 1 in 1,000, or and then hoping that those people can convert. It's a very black box essentially. Whereas like going direct to your source, like it's kind of crazy, right? Like if you were to go in person to a conference to sell a product, you would go to there's millions of conferences. You have to pick the one that's super perfect for your fit. Like if you're selling insurance, you're not going to go to a landscaper conference. Like it doesn't make any sense, right? And so, but for whatever reason, like people don't do that on Facebook groups and on Reddit. So that's why I like it. It's like a virtual way to interact from a conference perspective. And yeah, it does get your brand out there. It's a 2015 strategy that still is very effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just want this concept to be even more deep, maybe not even limited to Reddit and FBA, but let's go beyond. Okay. But just to give you a little more context, the listeners of this podcast are someone who uh, maybe have felt like underdog or are still feeling like underdog or are in the hustle period of their lives, are founders, solopreneurs, or freelancers or creators. Okay. So, where should a certain creator start if they have zero ad budget but want leads?
This is a very very big problem that I see with clients is they want to spend the ads, but they're totally fine spending money on ads, but they're so uncomfortable going on Reddit and posting like, "Hey, I just started this company. Can everyone take a look?" That's free. Like, so that's why I think community is really powerful in this bench. You can go to the right people. You can also get feedback. Like, I try not to make it more of a sales thing and just say more of a like, it's like show and tell in school, right? It's like, I'm just going to show you, tell me what you think. What are your thoughts? Is this the right fit? People are very generous with their time, especially if it could potentially make their life easier. And really, with the Facebook groups, right, you could find 5 or 6 different groups that are somewhat similar. They have some overlap, but they're different enough. And then, if you're looking for your ideal customer, you can just kind of select based off of those 6 groups, like what had the best resonance with people, and then from there you can continue to do further, expansion, or you could target those people better, run ads, whatever you want. But that's why I think that anything that you can get free traffic and free revenue, that's the goal. So I would never, your first 100,000 or so, I would just focus on getting free feedback and traffic and money.
A lot of the people like who are operating small businesses are trying to micromanage everything, right? They have to look after the business operations, ad budget, marketing, sales, design, and a whole lot more. And while they are on this process, on this journey, they often burn out very fast. So one thing is sure enough that they have to follow systems, they have to automate a lot of things so that the lo- their load is kind of decreased, right? And you also say in your talks that doing more with less have has a higher impact. So what's your take on this particular concept when it comes to operations?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge user of AI and building out automations. Anything that's somewhat redundant, we automate. There's issues with that, so you have to set up some guardrails, and the confidence of the decision is another thing that we test out. So, for example, if I get, let's say, 500 emails a day, I want to make sure that I respond to all of them. Now, I can't do that. That would be too much work for me. So I can create a system that responds, and at a certain confidence interval, it just pings me directly and says, "Hey, take a look at this and respond." And then we can further continue to train that. Um, if you're not using AI to remove the redundancies in your day to day, like I don't know if you're going to make it. You might make it today, but not by 2030. Like it's just too powerful, too good. The guardrails are so powerful. I just ran a strategy with a super like blue collar, like they don't use AI at all. And he is like, I did not know what you just did was possible. And I'm not saying that like this is the most advanced thing ever, but it's like pretty advanced. I'd rather kind of introduce him to something that blows his mind, because that's really how I feel about technology. Is it's like it's magic. If it works, it's magic. If it doesn't work, then you get complaints. But our job is to make the magic happen constantly. So, um, as the business grows, what used to happen was you would just throw more people onto tasks. Or you would say, all right, now you're in charge of sales and also marketing, and also just make sure that you also make posts and respond. And it collapses. It's really tough. And then what happens when that person leaves? Now it's just an AI system. So I think you're going to get more teams that can, grow way beyond their means and have teams of like 3 or 4 people, maybe even one. You're going to start to get like a one person $1 billion company by the end of the decade for sure.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about solopreneurs. Let's talk about these indie creators. Okay, you have worked with companies big and small. know, solopreneurs to multi-billion-dollar companies. Also, you have worked with Sony as well. So I'm interested on the lessons that you have learned from working with these giants and what indie creators can steal from these million or billion-dollar companies.
Yeah. So the nice thing that these companies do, they're super, super large and they're very slow to move. So in some way, and I'll tell you why. They they have 2 problems. Number one, they have like a promotion focused incentive. So usually when I'm talking to, let's say, like the senior vice president of sales, he has a budget of $1 billion in marketing for the year. So how does he how does he spend that money? Well, he has to go to his board and like give a pitch. And if he says, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do like these 5 strategies," one's Google, one's Meta, one's TikTok, and here's two others that Justin gave us that are like you've never heard of before. He's going to get laughed out of the door. Like he's going to lose his job. So you need to you in some ways that's great. So this is why like founder led companies like Meta and like Snapchat and a few of the like Nvidia, like they succeed so well is because like there isn't a problem getting laughed out of the door because the risks that they've taken, like there's always new risks to take. And if your board is a bunch of like 80-year-old guys who just learned what Instagram was, like you're not gonna make it. So that's one of the problems that they have. They have an incentive focus based on jobs. And the second issue is in similar vein, they need to create way, way more guardrails because if you just run a strategy, you cannot get sued for it. You can't upset people. You can't run an ad that like ends up getting taken down because that just looks bad. Like there's a so with like AI, I think a lot of people have struggled to implement it because they don't want to because they're selling to millions of people a day. So yeah, make a mistake that like is 99% good. Because that means like they're affecting thousands of people. So you know, that is actually something that you can kind of take from them. Like they have really strong guardrails in place. And so I think a lot of people move so fast that they don't realize the 1% adds up. But in the same way, like you can move a lot faster than them. And you're seeing this like with, ChatGPT has moved faster than Google on AI, even though Google had developed a lot of the early transformer models.
A lot of these small companies, solopreneurs, always want to grow bigger, right? The scaling is always the number one priority for all these companies, all these brands. It always starts from one, but eventually they want to go to 100, right? So, how should these creators think about playing bigger without losing the essence of what they're building? Because most of the times, what happens is that even though they have a core objective that they want to fulfill, they have a purpose for the brand. While they're trying to scale, somehow that objective is skewed and they're not true to their purpose anymore. So, how do they play bigger without losing that?
The hardest thing is getting feedback from people, unbiased feedback. A lot of people they the problem with feedback is you get two types of people. You get people who are negative always. They're always going to nitpick you.
Yeah.
Uh, or you get people, and if you've ever been in a meeting and someone says, the boss says like, "All right, any thoughts? How does this look?" And everyone just stays quiet.
Yeah.
So you have to really find people who are going to be honest. You have to find that third person, super honest, a bit particular, but has a really high quality taste, and that taste can kind of resonate, even though like once they say it, like that's right. Like they really found that thing that you didn't want them to find. If you can find those people, and that's the problem is you can't just go on, Twitter or wherever and just like ask for that feedback. You'll never get that level of quality feedback from them. You're going to get a lot of haters there, or vice versa. So you have to find really, really in-depth feedback providers, and I don't think that can be automated anytime soon. It's really hard to find.
Let's talk the real things. Okay, let's talk real and very unfiltered. I want you to give a few advices that you might give to usual clients or potential clients, or maybe small business owners. And I want the thing that they usually don't want to hear, but they really need to.
I can tell you the number one thing is to fire people.
And why you think so?
I think most people are just uncomfortable with firing people. I myself have been in the past. Like my first time firing a person was really hard. Um, but it's like there's a guitar in the background. Like you weren't great the first time you played a guitar. You have to get better at it. And so I think a lot of people, when I talk to business owner, they're like, yeah, that's, Kathy's fault, but, I can't get rid of her. She's a good woman or whatever. And it's just very hard to grow the business. If you can't make that decision, yeah, there's so many other things that you can't get through. So I think that's the most important thing is not always firing, but like there's oftentimes a human in the loop. It could be even it could be an agency or a vendor that you're using that you're like relying on, but you need to be able and comfortable to just rip the band-aid off and say, we need to find someone else. You're gone. Your company's gone. That's hard.
Does that still stay true for small businesses because they really have a small team to play around?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's even worse because if you're Sony, you've hundreds of thousands of employees and vendors and whatnot, and so it's you can kind of get away with some slack on some people, but with a small business, like you're doing $1 million a year and you have 3 employees, like each employee accounts for a third of the business. Like that's a problem. Like that's a big a lot of money. Um, and on the flip side, a lot of people don't fire their clients as well. I've had many clients that I was excited to get, and then after a few months, I realized like they're asking too much for the price they're paying, and so you have to really be comfortable like breaking relationships. It's a hard thing, right? It's like breaking up with a person. It's very hard.
Yeah.
But at the end, like that, this is going to be your longevity. You need to make that decision quick.
Have you ever told someone that you're not ready to scale?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, everyone wants to scale, right? Even the small, as you mentioned, a small business is trying to make $1 million per year. It's kind of small, and they really want to scale it further, right? But listening to this statement might be like a knife to the throat. But how do you deal with that? But what really led you there? Like, why do you say that to any of your client? Or maybe talk about an instance where you had to say that.
So you kind of need to understand their goals. So usually when they're saying, yeah, well, I want to grow 10x, they always say 10x because they like heard it somewhere, Grant Cardone or some idiots. It's like the like you can't just do that. Like this is you can't just like flick, you can't just like snap your fingers and do it. Like you need to figure out like why do you want to do that? What's your goal? Are you retiring in 30 years and you need that for your 401k or your retirement or whatever? So you need to figure out like what's that roadmap look like? How do you get to that 10x point? Is it just that you 10x the number of like sales outreach campaigns, or are you spending 10x more in marketing? Because everyone says like they want to 10x their growth, but no one wants to say, "Oh, I want to 10x my marketing spend." You're looking for an exponential return on investment. So I always tell people like, "All right, let's wait a couple months. Like, let's roadmap this all out. I want to figure out all your systems." What I find is that when you get to like 2x your growth, everything collapses. Like you need to hire more people, you need more products, you need more your design team collapses, there's not enough outreach, there's so many other things. So like sure, it's nice to build for scale, but like let's just double it first and then figure out that next step. Like because it's like a pressure thing, right? As soon as you get to that 2x, there's gonna be a lot more pressure on you. And then a lot of people say, like, I don't actually want to grow 10x after that.
Mostly, there's a lot of things that are responsible for growth, and companies don't have a number on that, but don't have a track on that. That is this what we have want to double down on to see that exponential growth, or is it the second thing? And mostly it's because of the myth that has been going around in the market, probably for other gurus, creators, or content creators who have been putting out content over LinkedIn or those social media platforms. As you mentioned, they have taken some guy's word for it, and they're like, okay, I want that growth. So what's that myth about growth that you're tired of seeing on LinkedIn and is false to its very core?
was actually going to go back to that therapy piece. Actually, I don't know what they may call this across the world, but there's in America, you if you're sick, you go to a doctor. Doctor diagnoses you roughly because they're a primary care physician, and they'll say, "I think it's this, but let me send you to a specialist." So there's a qualification and then sending you to a specialist, and then they run their own separate tests, or maybe they run an idea. And if they say, it might not be that, you go to some other specialist. In business, they skip that qualification stage and they go directly to a specialist. So they say, oh, I want to grow my business. Therefore, I need to go talk to a meta ads person who's a specialist. They don't ever qualify that. Maybe, and this is where I find we're unique. It's like, I'm much more of the primary care physician. I can tell you, here's all the options. Like, I have a growth playbook that it's going to be like over 1,000 pages. It's got like 100 different strategies to grow. There's no such thing as like, oh, you have to do this one thing first. It really depends on where you are, where your customers are, how much you're willing to spend on ads. All of that stuff kind of flows in, but it's a very complex web. It just as like medical conditions can be. So I think most people they skip that step and then they end up with a meta ads person who isn't the good fit for them. And so they're scaling but because they're kind of like pre-diagnosing myself. Like, I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose myself. Like, I need to go to a professional. So yeah, I think more people just should really focus on like talking to a diagnoser first and then sorting that out. But in the past, that was a middleman. Like, the world has kind of moved away from middlemen. They've moved on to going direct to the source. So I hope that changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they're saying these statements only because those words are selling the most. They want to sell their own brand. They want to sell their own maybe purpose or their own personal brand or whatever. And the only way they can do that is by saying these generic things that people know or people might click on the most. And that is why I think that there's a lot of myths that are going around, but I don't want to go into myths. I want to shift gears now. I want to know about the landscape of running an agency because a lot of times, like every day, you would be bombarded with a surprise. Every day, there's something new. Every day, there's something new happening in the either your client side or on your side of the business. Okay. And there are uncertain times where you can't predict anything. There must be a few scenarios like, okay, this was meant to happen, or I was expecting that. But there must be times where everything is uncertain. You're like, it's out of my imagination, right? So, what is that mindset shift that you usually take up on to deal with this kind of scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Bezos talks about like the the revenue from this quarter, the stock price of this quarter, the growth, whatever, it really isn't today. Like, you're gonna see a number that happens today when they report, but that was built in 3 or 4 quarters ago. And that those iterations occurred, and now you're starting to see that bet pan out. So it doesn't make sense to like look at the today's number and like clap, right? So I really like when we're building like customer dashboards, finding like some of the less valuable at the high level numbers to focus on. So a good example is like Shopify's CEO talks about like, everyone wants to look at like total sales and all this, but like all I care about is like page speed. Like, he's like, if I can solve, because as the business grows and there's more and more people on the back end, the page speed naturally should be worse. But if I can solve for page speed, that means like the business is scaling appropriately. So I mean, I'm sure they have other KPIs, but like,
Yeah.
you have to think about like what are the underlying kind of tertiary dashboard metrics that you want to solve for. And then revenue should be the last thing that actually falls into that category. Um, if everything is going right, revenue should sort itself out. Um, if page speed got 10 times worse, there are going to be less people using Shopify. So it's just a very like there. This is why I find like people aren't built for that. They're much more naturally seeing like a number that's flashing and they think like, great. So let's try and kind of unravel that and focus on a few different KPIs that might be unique.
Gotcha. Justin, we are almost at the end of our podcast, but this one segment that we do at the end is a rapid fire segment with all of our guests. I'll ask you 5 questions, but the catch is you have to be short, you have to think fast, and you have to be real. You ready for it?
Good. Let's do it.
Okay, the first one. One word that describes most marketing agencies today.
Liars.
Yeah, okay. Well, I won't comment on that, but number 2, your favorite underrated platform for lead generation.
Say TikTok.
Okay. Number 3, biggest myth about scaling a business.
It's easy.
Okay. Number 4, Reddit versus LinkedIn. Where are the real leads hiding?
Reddit for sure.
Fusey? Okay. It's you for me. Okay. The last one, number 5, one tech tool you would recommend every solopreneur to try.
I would say Claude.
Huh? Okay. This time I'm kind of surprised with any of our guest answers, but I think it's all for the good. Thank you so much, Justin. Thank you so much for appearing here as a guest. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I am really grateful. And I think the insights are really, really fun and, eye-opening at the same time.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this.
Okay, great. Before leaving, Justin, do you have anything you have to share to our listeners? Any advices, any suggestions?
No, I mean, if anyone wants to find me, my site is aryocg.com. We're all throughout the world. I love talking to clients and prospective individuals that's starting businesses. So feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Our Instagram is Aryo Consulting. And yeah, I really appreciate it. This is great.
Thank you so much, Justin.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this episode insightful and actionable at the same time. I'll leave links to Justin's socials and his website down the description or show notes for you to go and check it out. I'll catch you in the next one, but until then, take care.